At the moment, the demand for crude palm oil in any given year is about 2.1 million tons. Now, Nigeria is producing less than 1 million tons every year.
That Aba is like the Taiwan of Africa, and that if there is power supply, even all those industries that left Aba will come back to Aba.
For anybody that want to make it in Nigeria is to look for any factory that the raw materials are available in Nigeria.
You just cannot go wrong with Nigeria.
The re-election of President Muhammadu Buhari marks a critical turning point on Nigeria's road to economic recovery. Interest rates and inflation are on the decline, the currency is stabilizing, and foreign exchange reserves are on the rise. The economy has come a long way from when it was inherited by a new party and cabinet in the midst of Nigeria's worst revenue declines in more than a quarter century.
The Buhari administration came in to meet a very challenged economic situation.
It wasn't a good one. The crude oil price in the global market had declined.
The slowdown in the economy started in 2014, and the data actually revealed that.
Africa's largest economy was nearly on its knees. The crash in the international price of crude oil had exposed the nation's near-total dependency on a single commodity.
Oil prices that had gone as far as $110 in 2014 had started declining, and at some point at the beginning of 2016 it was as low as $30.
The economy was slowing down, and we had flagged that, okay, there's something going on here and policymakers need to address it.
So revenues were very, very low. We also had very little savings as a country. Foreign reserves at that time was about $23 billion. That's just barely about 3 months financing of the trade that the country goes into.
By 2016, the reality hit.
With the crash in the oil prices, we had a very challenged situation, and we ultimately went into a recession. So this was what the administration met.
The new cabinet of policymakers realized immediately that there was simply no time to lose.
When we were appointed as ministers, it was clear that we were going to go into recession. So we were busy trying to prepare how to pull ourselves very quickly out of recession when that happened.
Before November 2015, the budget was part of the Ministry of Finance. But the president felt that because it was so important to plan our way out of the challenges that we had, it was so important to plan our way to ensure that we brought the change that he promised.
As the nation suffered quarter after quarter of negative growth, it was clear that without a plan of action, Africa's most populous country would soon be faced with the daunting specter of a depression.
The Economic Recovery and Growth Plan involved extensive consultation with stakeholders, with the private sector, with the states, the governors of the states, with the National Assembly, with our international development partners, so as to get a buy-in to the plan.
The Economic Recovery and Growth Plan was designed to help pull Nigeria out of a recession, steer the country onto the path of a growth that is both sustainable as well as inclusive.
Central Bank, being the monetary policy authority in the country, was also part of the process of developing the ERGP document. And that document, I repeat, is applauded in any part of the world as a standard plan that would lead to the development and the industrialization of Nigeria.
Nigeria was over-dependent on a single commodity. The plan was to move us out of that dependency and make us a producing country. Make us a country where we grow what we eat and consume what we make.
And the growth we seek to achieve is a growth that is diversified into other sectors of the economy, such as agriculture, services, manufacturing.
Facing a deepening crisis and an economy on the brink, policymakers rallied to design an economic blueprint to help guide Nigeria out of the dark, which ultimately became the signature monetary policy of the Buhari administration's first term.
Economic Recovery and Growth Plan basically looks at what are the fundamental things that need change in Nigeria as far as the economy is concerned.
The ERGP itself had a huge MBS input. Unlike past plans where you would see World Bank, IMF, UN data, it was mostly MBS statistics, Nigerian domestic statistics, that was used in the plan. And that's probably why the plan was successful in getting out of the recession, because it focused on the actual problems that we were facing in the country.
And when the plan was unfolded, it was accepted as a very comprehensive plan, a plan that could get the economy growing again. And public confidence in the government and the economy and investor confidence was stimulated by the plan. And as a result of that and the spending stimulus for the economy, we moved out of recession and started growing again.
Well, I think that we have to really commend the Nigerian government for a lot of the economic reforms that they have put in place. I think there were maybe people who were doubters about whether or not they would in fact do it, and I think they got a little bit of a slow start, but my impression and the impression of the private sector that's there, a lot of our members who are on the ground, U.S. companies, Visa and, some of the oil companies, etc. And so the ease of doing business improvement that the Nigerians have been able to actually accomplish over the last about year and a half, increasing their score by 16 points.
By 2017, the recession was over. The continent's biggest market was once again finally back on the move. How did the plan help the economy achieve positive growth in such a short time?
Nigeria's Economic Recovery and Growth Plan was developed and launched in April 2017. There are 3 broad strategic pillars and 5 execution priorities. We have 60 strategies and about 360 initiatives.
With a team led by His Excellency the Vice President, we engaged the communities of the Niger Delta and sold them the plan and said, this is our plan. We are working together. And I have to say, the states, the communities of the people of the Niger Delta cooperated with us, and we're indeed very grateful to them.
After the difficulty that happened in the kind of oil price situation that was Nigeria in 2015, 2016, 2017, there was a need to do kind of a recovery plan because growth disappeared. I mean, Nigeria went into a recession during that period, and it was also mixed with a forex constraint where people could not access foreign capital for importation needs and for capital importation needs, so it really slowed growth. And there was a need for a broader growth plan to address that issue.
Part of the plan was to drive implementation. So the implementation unit was set up comprising of 4 of us. So the mandate was to develop the framework for implementation across the main priorities of government.
I think that they put a lot of work and effort into it, and the thing that I am most impressed about is that they're implementing.
One of the things the government has learned over the years is that we needed a new way of working. We needed a new way of delivering tangible improvements to the citizenry using newer methods.
It was successful because we got the buy-in of everybody. Because ultimately, if you have a plan that is seen as separate from the people, it doesn't work. This plan was a people's plan. It was a plan that arose out of engagement with Nigerians, with all the Nigerian sectors, with as I said, with the private sector, with the National Assembly. So the National Assembly adopted the plan as their own. The private sector adopted the plan as their own. The various states adopted the plan.
The economy has improved in several areas. In other areas, it's done nothing, it hasn't moved. And in other areas, it's actually gotten worse. But overall, as a country, the economy is doing much better.
The numbers tell the story of the recovery. After 5 consecutive quarters of negative growth, the economy rebounded during the second quarter of 2017, improving from 0.5% to 2.38% in the final quarter of 2018. Why had the ERGP been more successful than economic blueprints from previous administrations?
The ERGP is not a new plan and is not a unique plan. It's just a practical plan that picked several very good plans that we had in country. We had the Vision 2020, we have the Agricultural Growth Revolution plan, there was a power sector plan, the petroleum industry plan. There were several plans in every sector. So what we did is we reviewed those plans, we extracted priority programs and projects from those plans and pull them together into the ERGP. The ERGP now became the overarching plan that every sector was supposed to be working towards achieving the target. So it's not a new plan.
Part of the premise behind the plan detailed the need to wean the nation off its addiction to oil, but old habits die hard.
There was concern that this ambition may not be investor friendly. And so there was an initial flight of capital, including from Nigerians, but that has been reversed.
The ERGP depends to a substantial degree on domestic investment. And what do I mean by that? It depends to a substantial degree on government's own investments in infrastructure, for instance, in projects, for instance, around the development space. So you build roads, you build bridges, you build airports, you build railways, you build transmission, further transmission capacity, and you did work with private sector operators to build power plants. So to a large extent, the government has to put its own resources as well.
This particular plan, Economic Recovery and Growth Plan, emphasized on its effectiveness based on implementation.
A plan can't be a great plan if it doesn't have implementation wired into it.
When you monitor implementation closely, you see what is happening, and where progress is being made, you report it. Where progress is not being made, you flag it. So there is an opportunity to make corrections before things become too late. So the difference is that there is a strong implementation focus.
We can see Nigerians are believing more and more in the country. We still have a few challenges. Some of those challenges we're dealing with, challenges of security, and the president is determined to address those challenges and ensure that we have a safe environment for Nigerians to do their business.
We have achieved a relatively stable macroeconomic environment in Nigeria, with inflation stabilizing or moderating to about 11%, with exchange rate looking very good today, with reserve build up and all that. Those are all the mandates and mandates that are enshrined in the ERGP document as targets that the monetary policy must achieve.
Aba is like the Taiwan of Africa, and that if there is power supply, even all those industries that left Aba will come back to Aba. Now that Geometric is in Aba and generating the power themselves, not just depending on the national grid. With our 141 megawatts, that's even more than what Aba itself needs. Marketers, the industrialists, they've all been appreciating Geometric power for coming to Aba because they know that with this power station in Aba, one, there will be regular power supply.
Aba
Nigeria per se is not known for shoe production. So, just like we started, it's the ingenuity of our people that we started shoe production manually. So people do not believe that our shoes are durable.
Nigerians don't patronize made in Aba products. The reason is the mentality they had that we are not producing to quality.
So we write made in Italy, made in Spain, and stuff like that. So they go and bring those shoes from those areas, mix it up with our own, and you won't notice the difference.
But presently, the mentality have changed automatically.
We consume 320 million pairs of shoes per annum in Nigeria. How? 160 million Nigerians at least buying 2 pairs of shoes per year. And then benchmark the price, say up to 2,000. You might be getting 2,000 multiplied by 320 million pairs. You are getting 640 billion. So it is an opportunity for youths, for fresh graduates to come in, learn the trade.
For us at Bachos, we understand that looking good is very good business. We are into clothing. We do shoes and leather goods as well. We have goods that can match, word for word, quality for quality, taste for taste, style for style, internationally and otherwise. What is so unique about our clothing and leather goods is 1, our quality, 2, our finishing, and 3, the costs. A lot of people are amazed at when they discover that all these are being locally produced. We try our best to make sure that the prices are affordable and stylish, at the same time elegant for everybody and every pocket, because we don't want you to break a bank while looking good.
At the moment, the demand for crude palm oil in any given year is about 2.1 million tons. Now, Nigeria is producing only 970, less than 1 million tons every year. So you have a deficit of about 1.1 million tons. And this deficit has to be imported into the country. And for this to be imported, the country loses a lot of forex in importing this into the country. In Nigeria, you know that about 80% of all the oil palm production is coming from smallholders. Unfortunately, their yields per hectare are very low. I mean, on average, you have yields per hectare between 2 and 3 tons per hectare of fresh fruit bunches. Our operations here at the moment, we have a workforce of in excess of 7,000. Now, we have a plan to establish at least 50,000 hectares in Cross River State alone. At the moment, now, for the country to meet its demand for crude palm oil, we need to have an additional probably 700,000 hectares of plantations established within the next couple of years, probably within the next 6 years.
Our business is the provision of solution to parking and movement scheduling of trucks around the highways and port cities of Nigeria. Before the ERGP, we did not have any government support or structural government support. ERGP put us in direct touch with the relevant regulators for our business. It also helped us to come in contact with a number of stakeholders who have a direct bearing on the success of our project. Right now, we have developed a platform. This platform is called TTP Systems. TTP Systems is a platform that enables trucks that are going into any city in Nigeria to post their itinerary on that platform. The owner or controller of the truck registers the truck, and then indicates what business and what time this truck is required to be in that city for. That platform is visible to the traffic management authority in each state, is also visible to we as administrators, and the owner or user of that truck is also able to see the itinerary of that truck. The second thing that platform allows the truck owners to do is to be able to book for parking spaces. So our platform enables the owners of available parking spaces in each city to register their parks, truck parks on that platform, and any customer that is a truck owner can book for parking for their trucks when it is in the city. Now, the good thing about this is that it ensures that only trucks that have legitimate business within a city can go into that city.
We get a letter from the ERGP inviting about 400 companies to Abuja to participate on those people that are going to make a recovery on the Nigeria economy, the Economic Recovery and Growth Plan. So about 400 companies invited, and we are so lucky. At the end of the day, 52 companies were selected, in which Coca-Cola Nigeria Limited were number 8 among the 52 to be financed by the federal government. That's how the ERGP rescued us from the problem of funding, and they approved some money tangible for the project through the Central Bank of Nigeria. Since then, we do the processing of the fund, and we have already established the nursery, as you have seen, about 5 hectares, and work is still going on to make it 15 hectares.
This factory has the capacity to employ about 3,000 people, and the community will benefit from it.
As far as it's recovered, Nigeria is still a long way from becoming the global economic powerhouse it has long aspired to be.
At the moment, whilst we have changed the trend, we've moved out of recession, we've started growing, we are not where we want to be. We're growing at 2%. That is even less than our population, less of population growth. Our target is 7%. So there is much more work that needs to be done.
Now back home to Nigeria, even though we're growing, it was clear there's a lot of fragility. Now one major event can make or break a country. Today, the crude oil price is averaging about $65 per barrel, right? It could slide for any reason to 50. We did our budgets for 2019 based on 60. So if for any reason it goes below 60, we have a challenge, yeah? And so we have to prepare for that possibility, because it could also happen.
Turning the corner on the recession had been a necessary first step. With President Buhari's renewed mandate to lead the country for another 4 years, comes a pledge to take the economy to the next level.
The government alone cannot solve all the infrastructure challenges that we have. So we need the private sector.
There's private domestic investment as well. And so people investing in agriculture without wanting to advertise for other companies, but you know that a lot of large companies have gone into agriculture. A lot of them have gone into agricultural processing. We all know, of course, the large company that is investing in the refining sector across petrochemicals, across fertilizer, across refined petroleum products. So to a large extent, a lot of the investments that we need to transform the Nigerian economy must also come from within the domestic economy.
To transform the private sector into a major driver of Nigeria's economy, the administration has made improving investor-friendly policies a top priority and is sending notice to the world that there's no better time to bet on Nigeria.
What we want is the non-oil sector should actually be the growth engine.
There's been some improvement in Nigeria's ranking on the doing business indicators, but it's still a long way to go.
Now is a good time. Those who come in now will find that they have an open market, a supportive market, a market where competition is not as severe as it would be in the West. So early mover advantage. In Nigeria, we have a large population, so you have a big domestic market. And on the back of that big domestic market, you can now export. This is the time to come. When Nigeria gets congested, and it will, when so many investors are coming into Nigeria, and they will, you will find that the profits would not be as great.
The ERGP Focus Labs was one way of saying, how do we implement all these things? How do we get the investment that we need for the ERGP in place? And you have an ERGP implementation unit as well.
One of the focus of the ERGP was to stabilize the macro economic environment. And in that we task both the monetary as well as the fiscal authorities to achieve certain targets. For the monetary authorities, they were expected to ensure that inflation, which was an all-time high of about 18% in January 2017, that it's brought down to a single digit. And today inflation is around 11.2%. So we're getting there.
An overview of the execution priorities of the ERGP. The number one is stabilizing the macroeconomic environment. The number two is agriculture and food security. The number three is ensuring power and energy self-sufficiency. Number four is transportation infrastructure. And number five is manufacturing, particularly based on small and medium-scale enterprises.
About Africa, it is the least saturated and greatest opportunity in terms of growth of long-term businesses. And then within Africa, Nigeria and Kenya, for example, are the two leading economies, but Nigeria eclipses all the other countries by a significant degree because of its size, because of its population. The business people you negotiate with, the people you work with in government circles are trying to get to the solution. They're not zigzagging and taking a long time to get there. They really are driving it at solution oriented. And American business investors, I can't speak to the rest of the world, really get that.
The private sector is a major consideration. If our efforts lead to the kind of fruition we're expecting, we can drive in so much more capital to the infrastructure projects we're looking to do, and so many other aspects of the economy that can be opened up for all parties to engage in, and to benefit.
Nigeria requires private sector capital to bridge the country's infrastructure gap, and this is critical for achieving the objectives of the Economic Recovery and Growth Plan.
Bringing private equity and foreign direct investment back to Nigeria would mean sticking to the plan. The ERGP has been largely successful in what it was designed to do. To prevent the economy from slipping into another decline would require staying the course on the midterm economic policy.
I think the private sector is very central, has been very central to the ERGP in many ways. In one way has been to develop the ERGP with them, amongst other stakeholders. Another way has been to work with them in a positive manner to address challenges or constraints that they may face. Another way has been constant dialogue through a quarterly business forum, specific sector-related interventions to understand what their considerations are.
Another area was also that we had inherited a negative trade balance. So our current account position was negative. Over the course of the period of implementation of the ERGP, this has since turned positive and is growing.
We also have to give credit to previous work that had been done. Foundations have been laid across various commodity chains, but focusing on implementation of ERGP, we've been able to accelerate some of the progress that had been made. RISE, as you've spoken, is experiencing that kind of progress. We're looking at cassava. Now we're self-sufficient.
We offer a supportive government, a government that is willing to listen to you, is willing to identify your own particular problem and address it.
If you look at the ERGP document itself, it assumes that the bulk of the investments that will come into the economy will come from the private sector.
Our plans, for a while, and including the ERGP, make very clear that the private sector is the engine of growth.
I mean, there's a lot of foreign entities that are playing in the space. Besides the kind of capital you require, local, we can't generate that capital locally. Sufficient of that money is locally. You have to leverage a lot of foreign investments and foreign interests.
It's a huge and dynamic market. So I'm very excited right now about the early stage investing, so venture capital, and Nigeria is so dynamic in this area, right? You have so many young people who are it's a hustler nation. They're out there trying to find a market for their products, for their ideas, and you have startups and very exciting entrepreneurs who are building interesting companies out of Nigeria.
The private sector in itself has a lot to gain investing in Nigeria. It's a tough environment to operate in, but I also assure you that the profit numbers are some of the best you can find in any environment.
We need to guarantee service and at the same time guarantee payment.
The road ahead for Nigeria's economy will not be easy. The decline in global growth, ongoing political and trade tensions, and the emergence of the United States as the biggest producer of crude oil in the world will take a toll on oil prices, the nation's #1 source of revenue. Despite these challenges, Nigeria still remains the most attractive destination in Africa to realize tremendous returns.
Most of the things that we need to do as a country are well documented in the ERGP. We have also gone beyond developing an economic master plan to ensuring that we do have stronger implementation.
The fact that we were able to pull the country out of recession in such a short time, yes, 6 quarters or 5 or 6 quarters in recession, compared to other countries, you know that there are countries today, without mentioning names, that have gone into recession, out of recession, and even gone back into recession, even during this same intervening period that Nigeria was able to pull itself out of the recession, and growth is accelerating. At 1.9%, yes, we admit that it is weak, but I think that even compared, just like the report that we received here, growth is slow in all regions of the world. And so it is not an isolated case that growth is slow in Nigeria, but we are working very hard to see to it that we're able to accelerate growth, and I am very optimistic that we're going to push harder to ensure that growth gets stronger in Nigeria.
Nigeria is all about the size and the demographics play. I mean, it is 200 million people going to 400 million people in our lifetimes, right? So it will become bigger than the US. And because of that, you just have insta-scale. So if you get something right, it goes big, and you don't have you can't have the same success with some of the smaller markets. The young people will seek opportunity, and they'll cross oceans to find it if they have to, or deserts, and so we really have to figure out how to kind of employ and give opportunity to all these very talented young people.
What we see is a growth driven initially by agriculture, because agriculture is the fastest way to grow because it is the easiest way to grow.
Principally, agriculture was positioned in a way that power sector would enable agriculture. Agriculture, through its value chain development, would need to basically transform primary produce into industrial products.
Nigeria, the largest economy on the continent, plays a significant role in that. And as I said, if they can do the things they're supposed to do, it actually drives growth, not just for Nigeria, but for the ECOWAS region in West Africa, and then also across the continent.
It will take a while, but can you imagine in 5 years' time, you're able to take a train from Lagos to Abuja, and it started. Can you imagine in 5 years' time, we have a fully functioning manufacturing special economic zone, say in Lekki or Eyimba City, employing 1.5 additional million young Nigerians, helping Nigeria to becoming an export powerhouse in textiles, in processed foods, and it's already being implemented. Can you imagine in 5 years' time that our network of roads is not full of potholes that damage your car every 2 kilometers? Imagine a country in which ease of doing business, people can go and get business transactions done, and they get them done speedily, efficiently, and it saves them money.
We're blessed with human capital.
All of the ingredients for viability exist here.
But we must stay the course and build on what we've started.
Investors can come in and they can make a good deal from whatever dollar, pound, or euro they're investing.
Because we're on the right track.
I believe in Nigerians. What it needs is for government to signal to the people that we're listening to your needs. For government to show people that we are a supporter of business. We are not standing in the way of business. And as government succeeds in doing that, you will see the energy that will be thrown up in Nigeria. And that is why I believe in the future prosperity of Nigeria.